Forbes India presents CommScope, Digital Dialogues, Powering Business.
Welcome to Forbes India presents CommScope, Digital Dialogues, Powering Business. I'm Ridu Bhandari. Well, the disruption caused by COVID-19 in our lives over the last couple of months has pushed us to embrace technology like never before in the way we live, work, and play. Business, collaboration, communication, sports, entertainment, everything is heavily dependent on technology today, and powering all of this seamlessly is digital infrastructure and big data that needs to be stored, managed, analyzed, and harnessed efficiently and intelligently to create true value for all of us. So our focus today is on building future-proof digital infrastructure and future-proof enterprises. And for this, I'm joined by a panel of very eminent thought leaders today. Let me welcome them. Nitin Mishra, Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Product Officer at NTT NetMagic. Kirsi Tavaria, CIO at BSC India. Shriji Gopinathan, CIO at Lupin. Saurabh Chatterjee, President and Head of IT, Web Sales and Travel at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Maina Raya JN, Director of Sales, Enterprise Business, India and SARC at CommScope. And Kanish Gaur, founder of the India Future Foundation. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us here today. Maybe I'd like to open the conversation with Nitin. Let me begin by asking you to give us a broad picture of some of the trends that you've observed over the last couple of months as far as data and data centers are concerned, in particular on-premises and remote as well. How have enterprises really been dealing with the whole COVID-19 impact?
So one thing enterprises and customers have realized that during a pandemic kind of a scenario, I think it is best to be hosted in a data center. Because on-premise there are still restrictions how you can reach that data center. But data center services as such by government was allowed as essential services. So which really allowed data center providers to really work seamlessly and ensure the uptime and for the data centers. So I think clearly we see that although there has been a major migration over the last couple of years from on-premise to enterprises, but this particular event has further accelerated for the customers and enterprises who had not taken that decision so far. Second thing we observed is, I think, a sudden burst in network requirements thanks to people moving work from home. So some of the applications which could be earlier accessed from private network had to be accessed from public network. So clearly we saw a sudden surge, and this is a scenario where data centers are prepared to serve to the customers and take care of such burst. Third aspect was the manageability. I think that is where the whole cloud adoption, which again has been coming mainstay over last few years, but this has further accentuated that whole thinking of migrating to the cloud. And fourth, I would say, is the resiliency part, because customers have realized that there could be such times when one may not be able to access the data. So there has to be a backup option available. There could be lockdowns which are specific containment area, etc., which can restrict things. So apart from the natural disasters which everybody was used to and what DR was planned for, now clearly they realize that this is another new situation for which having a DR and a resiliency becomes critical.
Let me also bring in Mylar here. Mylar, Nitin has given us a broad picture, but in these unprecedented times, how can enterprises really efficiently manage data and data centers to ensure that they aid analytics, leading to better business intelligence and growth strategies? Because these are rather tough times for all enterprises.
The data center industry, one thing which has to keep in mind, the three focus areas in order to thrive. One was the simplicity, reliability, and adaptability. A simple networking portfolio often provides benefits that are best understood when they aren't there. So a single network to support multiple applications, power and data could be on the same media running, a solution that is easy to design and easy to deploy. So these are some of the hallmarks of the simplicity and are at the core of any effective infrastructure approach. Looking at increasingly fueled by the strong growth that we have started seeing in the cloud adoption, we are seeing customers, especially from the communication service provider sector, who are transitioning into the software-defined networks and also on the NFV to jumpstart agility and drive greater efficiencies and make savings throughout their networks. And accordingly, we have seen SDN remains top of the agenda when looking at the investments that we have started seeing within the industry is. Realizing the benefits of these, however, creates also unique challenges, among which is getting into various and diverse hardware and software components in the network to talk to one another in order to manage different services and capabilities seamlessly and efficiently. Enterprises are deploying these architectures of SDN and also looking and monitoring management of critical data center facilities, including power, cooling, network, including their structured cabling requirements. This approach is bringing in a lot of integration and automation, which we have never seen before. The insights that achieved aid analytics and also thereby efficiency, performance, and optimization. The trend is consistently ensuring very high level of standardization, availability, and also manageability, which is going to have a very positive impact on the business growth, speed, and agility is.
Let me also ask Sriji, COVID-19 has perhaps been the biggest test of resilience and agility for all kinds of enterprises across the world. So in these times, what has kept Lupin in good stead? Where are you in your digital transformation journey right now? What role did emerging technologies like AI or cloud or automation play in managing supply chains on the manufacturing floor, in terms of R&D, especially in those successive months of a lockdown? And how critical was your digital infrastructure to your business continuity in these times?
Yeah, so basically what COVID-19 has done is, as Nitin earlier mentioned, we had to keep the business continuity. That was the priority. So in terms of adoption of digital technologies, there were a lot of movement in terms of people who are sitting on the fence who moved to the right side of the fence. Yeah, so that is the biggest impact which COVID had as far as digitization is concerned. As far as technologies are concerned, I don't think AI ML per se played any significant role in these few months in terms of keeping the business afloat. It was about providing connectivity to people, providing devices to people, making sure systems are up and running, and then engaging in discussions of accelerating the digital transformation. So there, in that last way that I mentioned, all those newest technologies has a significant role to play. So whether it is increasing the efficiencies of manufacturing operations, or in terms of engaging with the customers, whether it's doctors, patients, pharmacies, or whether it is having an integrated supply chain where it is important to understand how all the different building blocks of that business planning exercise connects well together. How intelligent can you make in terms of the heuristics and algorithms that is needed to make sure that the demand and the supply is tied up as accurately as possible. So those are the areas where the modern technologies that you mentioned will play. But as far as COVID-19 is concerned, as I said, it was adoption which was got accelerated in terms of collaboration, in terms of devices, in terms of acceptability. And they had to think like, okay, going digital is going to help us, do things wherever you are. And that is an important thing to do. So that is what has happened in Lupin, and I think in all the other companies as well.
Kirsi, I know that you played a leading role in transforming the BSE into a very tech-savvy and customer-friendly exchange. Give us a sense of the key pillars of your digital infrastructure today and the journey that data has really had from the traditional exchange to digital technologies at BSE, and how that has really transformed trading on the exchange.
As a POC, we already had working, though for a stock exchange, working remotely was a big no-no, like in the pre-COVID days. But just for an extreme emergency, we already had a plan. If worst case happens, like, but the stock exchange has to start, BOD has to start. What happens in case of a floods or or XYZ region like Bombay. If you are in Bombay's person, like what is the situation during monsoons. There is nothing predictability of person reaching office. Everything else works except transport. So how do you? So we are keeping that contingency in mind. We still had some automations and processes in place where we could have a few people get connected to the exchange and start the basic operations. The trading has to start, the risk management, everything has to start. The machinery has to be in order. So we already had that in place. Only thing is what we didn't have was this mass scale rollout of like having all say 1,000 plus or 2,000 people working from remote. Okay, so the fastest thing, the biggest challenge was uh, giving connectivity to all these people, building up the basic workflows and controls. See, very important thing was it's not just was a mass rollout; it has to be very, very controlled rollout because we had to make sure that while it is we're able to execute, we also wanted to make sure that there is no security lapse. We never wanted to take security for granted, and that's why we went out very, very cautiously. But at the same time, we made things very simple. We never took out the data outside the office. We follow the basic principle is let all the compute remain within the organization building. Just help from a remote terminal, get you connect to your basic desktop that you're working with so that your operations, your efficiency does not go down. Because a lot of people I have heard in the industry, when they took their desktops home, they had major performance issues in their application. The applications were crashing. We ensured that by not taking out any work like compute from outside our offices, we have ensured that there was absolutely no performance issues. Like the only challenge was just getting connected to your desktop. And today people are talking big time about VDI and very big VDI infrastructure. We did something very simple. It was a homegrown solution. We made that thing up and running within 1 week, and we were very, very successful in doing that.
Forbes India presents CommScope, Digital Dialogues, Powering Business.
Kanishk, if I can bring you in here, what about those millions of enterprises in our country that had really not invested so much into digital technologies, the traditional small and medium business sector that had really, a lot of it was perhaps in nascent stages of digital transformation, or perhaps even just discovering the internet and what it can do for them in large parts of the country. How should those enterprises now, many of them have been wiped out, in fact, but those who remain and those who are fighting to stay alive, how should they be navigating the future as we step into this whole new normal that we're talking about?
Thank you, Mridu. A very valid point made by you. So today, if you are not online, you're out of business. Erstwhile, it used to happen was that online was powering offline businesses. But today, it's the online businesses which is going to take the next leap forward. The economic growth of this country today depends upon how our online businesses are going to perform. Some of the online businesses which were erstwhile ignored are the new reality. So if you look at, we had around 50% of our restaurants getting closed. And these restaurants were actually fighting with some of the e-commerce or e-food delivery apps. But if you look at today, the e-food delivery apps or the e-commerce businesses are a lifeline for them today. So it's created a new model for collaboration. Or if you look at the hotel industry, right? They were having major issues with the aggregators, the online aggregators. But this requires collaboration. So there is a new partnership which has come into picture, and the time is right for offline businesses to adapt online. And for that, they need to use the power of data centers. You need to use the power of cloud. And I think there are multiple innovations which are happening. And as our Prime Minister has rightly called out about us becoming Atmanirbhar, this is the time where we need to collaborate, shake hands, and use powerful technologies. So, using CRM, using cloud, using digital marketing tools is very much important. So it's important that some of these offline businesses get into partnerships and alliances with leading services providers. And if you look at, there are new services being launched by service providers specifically targeting towards SMEs and medium scale businesses. Now, these collaborations, these partnerships are key to success right now. This will only enable that how much we are able to take things forward and we are able to sustain and build continuity.
Saurabh, if I may bring you in as well, as an insurance company, as a B2C company that has humongous amounts of data traveling, in transactions every minute, of course, storage and retrieval is important. Give us a sense of how data analytics is playing a crucial role in enhancing the customer experience. Also, there has been a significant shift of consumer preferences during the pandemic, moving towards digital channels. Does that then change your whole strategy and everything that you wish to get out of data? How are you preparing for the future?
I would say is look at it from a B2C company, the consumer side. What is happening is there is a percentage of data. If I would say like 90% of the data was getting generated within the enterprise, now I'm seeing almost 30%, 40% of the data getting generated out of the enterprise, which means, I may even go out to say that corporate compute, may move to the edge. Right? What is happening is there is an explosion of data on one side, right? We have lots of insights that we are generating from not just the data that we have, but from whether it is the the user mobiles or the kind of the endpoints that they are using, or it is we as an insurance company, not just are on the B2C side but B2B2C sides, right? We insure factories, right? So there's a lot of IoT data coming in as more that they are getting automated. So bunch of this data is coming in. What is happening is from our standpoint, there is a need to, the data is getting denser, the data is getting heavier, which means the compute, the storage and compute need to be closer to each other. You cannot keep on traveling that as a metaphor, right? You cannot keep on traveling from one place to other, which provides that ability from a edge standpoint to come up. The other thing that is happening is also the fraud element. Insurance companies, the other element of, we are supposed to pay claims, and that is our fiduciary responsibility, right? But however, 5% or that percentage of the fraudulent claims that come in destroys the experience for 95%. And this is where again data is playing a very interesting role. It is not just the raw data, but what we process and the models that we are running to be able to provide a better experience from an end consumer standpoint. And this is where, but I strongly believe corporate compute will move to the edge over a period of time. This is already happening. And there is just an explosion of external data that I'm seeing in the enterprise.
My lord, as we step into the future and keep pace with technology, in India, of course, we are waiting for the whole 5G rollout. How is this rollout of 5G and the resultant hyperconnectivity likely to impact data centers in future?
Yeah, Mridu, 5G has been a buzzword across. So with the 5G rollout, potentially it has a greater impact on many industries, whether it could be manufacturing, automation, healthcare, finance, transportation, including the biggest at the heart of the data center on the whole. The trend has been really good for the data center businesses is, if you go back and look at the three key attributes for the 5G, high bandwidth mobile broadband. The second one is the support for massive machine-to-machine communication with a density of very high, up to 100,000 connections per square kilometers expected to be. And the most important one is the ultra low latency communication, enabling almost sub 10 milliseconds latency for mission critical applications. How do a connected car get on to the connectivity, making the right decision, could be in a traffic like that of a Mumbai, Delhi, or a Bangalore is. So it plays a highly critical role on the 5G rollout. So data centers are now beginning to consider and anticipate the entire change of where the entire data processing, storage need to occur. They're also examining on how much of network bandwidth is going to be required between the 5G nodes and the edge data centers, which is closer to the equipment that's actually getting communicated is, as well as the network connections to smaller regionalized and centralized data centers, which will be the future. And the question that you asked about hyperscale cloud service providers will play an increasingly an important role as the 5G applications develop.
While we are talking of data, let me also ask Nitin about the potential of India as a data center destination for the world. The government did allocate about 8,000 crore rupees in budget 2020 for setting up data centers and IT parks across the country in the next 5 years. Beyond infrastructure, what sort of policy measures are required to make this an attractive proposition? so that, the world sets up its data centers in India? How can we become far more competitive?
Yeah, so there are clearly, India has some advantages in terms of the manpower, even from cost effectiveness perspective. So we do see, currently we are seeing two kinds of, external customers who are using data centers here. One is obviously to serve Indian market, and also because of the government conditions of data localization and things like that. Beyond that, we also see some nearby, right from Middle East to could be even Thailand and these locations using India as a DR location. So clearly, I think there is potential in building data centers to serve outside markets. Some of the things which government really look at it is obviously, I think they have been proactive recently in engaging with the service providers in terms of taking their inputs, and it's a good initiative to on the IT, on the parks, data center parks with the ready-made facilities, because that really helps to roll out these facilities much faster.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here today and sharing those absolutely innovative ideas into building future-proof digital infrastructure and constantly remaining on that transformation journey. Appreciate you joining us.
Forbes India presents CommScope, Digital Dialogues, Powering Business. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.